This first climber is the most unique case of climbing controversy I think I've ever read about. Rich Simpson is a British climber who was very active in the schoolroom scene, which is this training room in Sheffield with a lot of hard board climbing, also featured in this Magnus video. Now, what makes Rich so special? Besides claiming he sent Action Direct, the world's first 9A, he also claimed to run a 2:30 marathon, a sub 4-minute mile, and to have an unbeatable amateur boxing record. Rich's case is also unique because of how strong he was. Ben Moon and Keith Bradbury have both retold their experiences with him. Keith, for example, watched him on some hard schoolboard stuff, claiming he was a level above anybody else he had seen on the board. Here he is smashing 159s. More importantly, Keith also belayed Rich on Action Direct, where he watched him link sections. Objectively, Rich was super strong. So why all this controversy around the send? Naturally, Rich could not provide any footage of the climb, something that back then was common. A lot of climbers still to this day don't require footage to validate a climb, especially when the climber is already established. But what led a lot of people to be suspicious, and what is a recurring theme in this video, is the mysterious belayer who can never confirm an ascent, or just simply doesn't seem to exist. I think it's rather normal to not remember or be able to provide a belayer for a lot of climbs throughout your life. But personally, if I sent Action Direct, I'm not leaving until I have something short of my belayer's social security number. Now this, coupled with the wild running and boxing claims, leads you to believe he might not be telling the truth. Rich lost or walked away from sponsorships during or after the ordeal and seems to have disappeared from the climbing scene. This alleged fake ascent revolves around one of the longest standing projects of all time. Bombe Bleu is a climbing route that was bolted in the late 80s by Marc Le Menestrel. During the first years, a ton of strong climbers tried the route unsuccessfully, including Ben Moon and Chris Sharma. There is some conflicting information about the climb online, but it seems like the Slovakian climber Juraj Recka claimed an FA on the project in 1993, but was doubted by Ben Moon and most other strong climbers who had tried the project. Apparently, Moon even checked out the holds after Juraj had climbed on it, not seeing enough rubber or chalk on the holds. Juraj's belayer was also a non-climber expat, also from Slovakia. All this, coupled with that the route has still not been ascended, leads one to believe that the route has yet to be topped and that Juraj either miscommunicated or had lied. I mean, look at this mono pocket move. Absolutely insane. Just like Rich, Juraj has since disappeared from the climbing scene. Nico Pellersen, who has climbed Burden, has apparently been the closest to doing the route, funnily enough without climbing shoes. And yes, Barefoot Charles has also tried it. John Gaskins is the only boulderer in this video. In 2004, Gaskin claimed he sent the boulder Shadowplay, which he gave 8C or V15.
Bleu, hardest boulder in the world. Gaskins. 8C. 8. What the?
He supposedly spent many sessions over many years on it. A couple of days after topping, John was asked to pull on single moves for photographs for sponsors. John failed to even pull on single moves. A while later, John was interviewed about the climb. John could barely remember any of the moves or holds and looked rather uncomfortable.
Because a lot of people have turned up and said they think it's impossible, you know. Can you just sort of talk through the moves on it?
I can't remember a huge amount about them.
Right.
Fairly obvious starting hold at the back of the roof.
Right.
And then there was a series of kind of layaways and small edges.
This interview seems to have been done a while after his supposed send, but still, if this was my highest grade I have ever climbed, I still would have remembered some of the holds. Shadowplay has still not been repeated. Other pros struggle to even find usable holds on the climb. This next case was covered extensively by Climbing Stuff, so here's the basic outline. Saeed Belhaj is the Swedish climber who claimed he sent Action Direct. Yes, this is the second disputed ascent on Action Direct. After claiming he sent, Saeed could not provide any footage, even though he was told to film attempts as he got close, as he was working with a filmmaker who was making a doc about the process and possible ascent. Suspicion continued after Said's usual belayer said he couldn't do the famous jump on Directe. This was also corroborated by a photographer who tried to take pictures of the jump. Also, the filmmaker I mentioned came out and said Said seemed to be too far off the climb to have done it in this time period. Daniel Woods also commented on this case with a good point, claiming that you definitely have a higher burden of proof when ascending your hardest grade, which also happens to be a world-famous test piece. Said still climbs to this day, and recently did a pretty cool film through Petzl in Sweden. I think 3-4 alleged fake ascents in climbing is a pretty good record for a sport that has been so reliant on trust. I also think it is likely we will see less of it, as it is way easier to prove or record yourself on an ascent than it was back then. This is all alleged, and even if they turned out all to be lying, it really isn't that big of a deal. Like Keith says here, compared to the weight of cheating in a sport like cycling, or even compared to world politics, this stuff is really unimportant.